Un segundito. Bueno, sirve que mientras vamos avisándole a nuestros equipos igual que pueden ya entrar a la sala para que la puedan ver en vivo y los que no, bueno, pues pueden ir a verla posteriormente a mi canal para que también ahí la reciban, ¿sale? Así que vamos a arrancar. Muchísimas gracias por conectarse. Les voy a pedir que tengan nada más, por favor, cuidado con sus micrófonos para que no se nos estén por ahí abriendo y tengamos oportunidad de compartir un poquito al final, ¿sí?
I want to teach now the law of reflection. And the law of reflection just says that learning to pause allows growth to catch up with you. And I'm going to teach you something that I practice a lot in my life. People look at me and they think of a person of great action, and I hope I am a person of great action. But I want to talk to you about what I would call the underneath part of the iceberg, the part that you don't see. You only see a third of the iceberg, but reflection is something that you don't see in a person's life. And so how do I help you understand the power of reflection? You see, reflection turns experience into insight. So when you've had an experience, if you reflect on it, it takes that experience and it gives you wisdom out of that experience. It gives you insight out of that experience. And if there's one thing I suppose I could do for people, it would be to help them to think. And reflection is part of a thinking process. And when I talk about helping people think, if I can help you think better, it'll greatly improve your life. And there's front-end thinking, which I talk about in my book, Intentional Living. There's front-end thinking that's all about preparation, but there's back-end thinking also. And that's all about reflection. And this lesson is about the back-end thinking. What do I do after a day like today? What do I do after being in a teaching experience? What do I do after I've listened to a law on an online course? What do I do with what I've just heard? You see, it's the reflection. To hear it is a good thing. To reflect on it is a great thing. And what I share with people all the time is that when you have an experience with you have an encounter with an important person, maybe you met somebody that just gave you a little bit of your time. It's what you do after you've met that person. It's what you do after you've heard that lesson that is absolutely essential to your success and to my success. And so I look at preparation and reflection as like, the two wings of an airplane. Somebody says, well, which is most important, preparation or reflection? Well, it's kind of like which wing is important. You're going to knock one of them off, you know what I mean? If you want to fly, you got to have both of them. So to teach reflection, I'm going to give you some reflection phrases now, okay? And the first reflection phrase I want to give you is that reflection is a place to pause. And I want to talk to you about pausing for a moment. In my book, How Successful People Think, I talk about find a place to think your thoughts. Find a place to shape your thoughts. Find a place to stretch your thoughts. And if you've heard me talk about thinking at all, you know that I'm big into, you got to have a place to think. You got to have a place where you pause and say, okay, this is where I'm going to settle for a while. For me, I have what I call a thinking chair, and I sit in that thinking chair. I don't watch TV in that thinking chair. I don't have discussions in that thinking chair. It's a thinking chair, and I go to sit and reflect and think. And I know what you're thinking right now. I think, oh my gosh, I finally figured his success out. I got to go buy me a thinking chair. Where do I buy the thinking? Yeah, I got lounge chair. Where do I buy the thinking chair? No, it's the chair. Let me tell you the sad news. The chair doesn't do the thinking for you. But the reason I'm so passionate about having a place to pause and having a place to think is because if you do, you'll pause more if you have a place. It's the old, I got that idea from a story that I read many years ago of a couple highly successful people. One dinner hour towards the end of the year, one bet the other. He said, I'm going to bet you $100 that next year you buy a bird. Guy said, that's an easy bet. I'll bet you that. He said, I don't have any desire to buy a bird. But he said, this bet is conditional on one thing. He said, what is it? He said, I'm going to buy you a bird cage. And I want you to hang it in a prominent place in your home. I said, okay, I can do that. So he bought him the most incredible, expensive, unbelievable bird cage. And he went over his house, and when you go into the door, he put it right in the room where you the first thing you would see is that bird cage. And he said, I'm going to bet you now that you'll buy a bird in a year. And people would come over to his house, and they come in the door, and they say, oh my gosh, what a beautiful bird cage. Oh, I've never seen a cage like this. This is amazing. Where's your bird? I said, well, I don't have a bird. You don't have a bird? What have you got a bird cage? You got a bird cage. What do you have a bird? You mean you don't have a bird for your bird cage? Did the bird die? No. I don't have a dead bird. I don't have a bird. I didn't have a live one, so I can't have a dead one. I don't have a bird. For 6 months, people went over to that bird cage and asked, where's the bird? 7th month, the guy bought a bird. And when I read that story, I thought, he bought a bird because he had a place to put it. And you will think good thoughts if you have a place to do it.
Wow.
And I have all of my life had my reflecting, my thinking places, and have gone to there because I wanted to have a place to pause. Wow. When I speak, a lot of times I pause. And people talk about, well, John, you speak and you may walk around for a couple seconds, not say anything. And the reason I do that is because I pause when I speak because I want to give people a chance to think about what I said. One of the mistakes communicators make all the time is they just keep talking. And they never let a person say, oh my gosh, it was so good, I got to digest it. When you're eating good food, you want to pause, don't you? You want to say, man, I don't want to stuff something else in my mouth. It just kind of tastes good. Coca-Cola talks about, the pause that refreshes. Reflection is the pause that refreshes you. And I've learned that just get a place to pause. And don't lose today while you're looking for tomorrow. Just don't do it. Have a place to pause. Let me give you another reflection phrase. Reflection is not only having a place to pause, it's like having a drink to enjoy. Every day I have people ask me, just like you have every day, people ask you, would you like something to drink? What can I get you to drink? And when they ask you if you want something to drink, you kind of think about it a moment. You got to say, okay, what would I like? What do I want? Soda? What do I want? Tea? I mean, so you're going through all the things that and here's what you do. You tell them to put in the glass something you like so well that you'll take out of that glass. That's what the whole question is asked. Could I get you something to drink? And reflection is just exactly that. It's reflection is, what am I going to put in that I would like to take out? And what I'm going to put in, again, is the preparation. What I'm going to take out is the reflection. What can I take in or put in to maximize the experience? What can I take out to maximize this experience? For example, I've always told people in leadership, have the meeting before the meeting. And what I mean very simply is, you got a very important meeting that you're really wanting to get some kind of vision or value across. What you need to do is you need to go have a meeting unofficially before you have a meeting officially. And why you have the meeting before the meeting is very simple. You have the meeting before the meeting because you want to make sure that when you have the meeting goes well. In fact, I tell people, if you don't have the meeting before the meeting, don't have the meeting. And if you do have the meeting before the meeting and it's not a good meeting, don't have the meeting. But if the meeting before the meeting is a good meeting, then guess what? You want to have the meeting. So on the front end, what can I do to maximize that experience? But the back end is reflection. What did I get out of that meeting? Just as you want to have the meeting before the meeting, you want to have the meeting after the meeting. And the meeting after the meeting is for you to begin to pull out and drink out. What did I just learn? What now I've got to reflect. I got to think on that. What do I take away from there? And what I've learned a long time ago is, if you reflect well, it leaves a good taste in your mouth. And if you don't reflect, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So when you reflect, it's not only a place to pause, but it's a drink to enjoy. Reflection also is a calendar to review. It's the ability to look at what you have done in the past and pull out things that are going to help you. For about 5 years, Bill Hybels and I would do a leading and communicating conference, and we had such a great time. We're good friends, and we just traveled the country, and we do this leading and communicating. And Bill had cast vision to his congregation. It was a great, like a 40-minute vision casting teaching. And I took and broke that whole video up, and I began to pull out why he was successful in casting vision, because it was more than just casting vision. There were certain things that he did to make that vision work, and it became a huge teaching. I mean, a huge teaching where I would show the vision. I said, now let me tell you why that vision works, and I pull out those thoughts. And one of the things that Bill did in casting vision well is he talked about the past in a way that made the future meaningful. He understood context, and he understood that you got to give value to people who have helped you yesterday before you can ask people to help you tomorrow. And as I would teach that, I would say, here's what you got to understand about vision. You have to be able to, with great credibility and care, touch the past if you're going to reach for the future. And if you don't have that context of past, you really will never do future well. And so for me, reflection means every year at the end of the year, I pause and I look at my calendar and I spend 5 days going day by day, hour by hour of how I spent that year. And I take my little notepad with me and I write down and just the thoughts that I have, and I just pull out all kind of things that begin to help me. It gives me perspective. It helps me understand what I've done with my year, how I need to change things to make the next year better. And it gives me a huge motivation to change, because I say, wow, that didn't work very well. Boy, I'll look at people I saw, so ooh, don't need to see them anymore. My gosh, there was no return there. And what happens is, by the time I'm done doing that, I'm now ready to focus on future. But let me tell you something, I can't focus on the next year until I have put to bed last year. You can't pass through issues you've never dealt with and think that you can tackle new issues. You just got to spend the time and deal with them. Wow, it just makes such, and so by the time I'm ready, I have great energy. And by the way, in that calendar stuff, if you do it, and I would encourage you, you know, most people on my team, they do it every month. And one of the things that sets good coaches, or great coaches, apart from good coaches, is that great coaches make halftime adjustments. They're really good at it. See, everybody has a game plan, and guess what I know about every game plan before a game? It looks real good. No coach ever said to his team, all right, let's take the field. I really have a terrible game plan. Oh my gosh, we're going to get killed. Now let's go really play hard. No. Every game plan looks good on the front end. The problem is the first half tells you if it's good or not. And you lose the game, not because you started off badly. You lose the game when you didn't halftime make the adjustments you needed to make. And it's the adjustments that you need. And reflection, it's like halftime adjustments. It allows you to say, oh, okay, I'm going to change some things. Another phrase I love for reflection is a map to study. It really, reflection done well really gives you some terrific direction in life. My father, of course, back then, of course, we didn't have all the technology we had. And so we had the old, I don't know, do you remember the old road maps where you pulled them out? I mean, they're little and they just kept pulling them out until they're this big. And my dad used to, on trips, he always had maps. He loved to say, okay, where are we? Where are we going? And he loved to lay out the maps for us and teach us how to. And his first thing is, you know what? You can never figure out where you're going until you know where you are. So boys, where are we? Your point, where are we? Okay, now this is where we are. Now, what are we going to have to do to get to the next town? And when I go to London, almost every time I go to London, I go to Winston Churchill's bunker, where he spent his time during World War II leading the English people against the Nazis. If you ever go, it's right across the Thames, right across from the Big Eye. If you're in London, you just need to go to his bunker, okay? You just and you go down where they bunkered down and they fought that war, and it's in you place where he slept. You go to his table. I literally have sat in his chair, and oh my gosh, it's amazing. But he had one room that was just full of maps, and they said he spent most of his time there because he loved maps, because the maps told him the whole story. He would look at the maps and he would know exactly how well they were doing against the enemy, because he'd get every day a new report. Here's where they are. Here's where we are. Here's what's happening. Here's the gain, the ground we've gained. Here's the ground we've lost. So just think of reflection as a map in your life, a map to study. Another phrase for reflection is a journal to write. I love the idea of the blank page. And after every experience, I've done this for years. After every experience, I ask myself 3 questions. What did I feel? What do I think? What do I know? And I take those 3 questions and I let them marinate in my life. You know, what do I feel? What do I think? What do I know? And talking back to myself has become an emotional exercise that helps me discover what I feel. Writing to myself is a thinking exercise. What do I think? And talking and writing to myself helps me to know myself. What do I know? And I would just say to you that if you want to really answer those 3 questions, you need to talk to yourself, you need to write, and you need then to let that, there's something about writing. And again, journaling, the enemy of journaling is people say, I just don't want to write pages. Hey, you don't need to write pages. In fact, I tell people, you don't need to write pages. Your life isn't that great. So don't get kind of carried away with the importance of all the things you're going to put in words. Just start by, again, phrases, sentences, a few things. And it's just amazing. My reflection route on journaling is this. I listen to myself, I talk to myself, I write to myself, I think to myself, and then I take action. And I just go through that process all the time. And I find each one of those phrases, those phases, each one of those has the ability to help me to go to another level. Another reflection phrase that I would give you is reflection is a wisdom to share. The fruit of reflection is wisdom. And the reason that the fruit of reflection is wisdom is because reflection has width to it. It has a width to it that allows us, that if we've had experience quite a bit and have a lot of width in our life, that experience allows us to have great wisdom. When I do Q&A, And I'll answer questions. People a lot of times will come away and say, man, John, your answers have such depth. Well, the reason they have so much depth is I've been asked that question 100 times. It's not that I'm brilliant. It's just after they've asked you 100 times, if you don't have a good answer, you got other issues in life. Isn't that right, huh? I mean, hello. And they think, well, that's the first time he's answered. That's amazing what he said. Well, no, it's the 100th time I've answered it. But reflection, it has a great sense of it has length. It gets sustained. It takes us through the seasons of life. It has depth to it. You know, reflection does away with easy answers, and reflection does away with quick thoughts. Just don't have any sustainability and any depth in them. And the reflection has great height to it also. It has the ability to lift us higher than what if we didn't take time and reflect. One of my favorite reflection pieces is Portia Nelson's autobiography in 5 short chapters. Chapter 1, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. Takes me forever to find my way out. Chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe that I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5, I walk down another street. That's the power of reflection. After time, you'll walk down another street. After time, your reflection will begin to have a depth to it that will just make a difference in your life and the lives of others. So the last one I'm going to give you, this won't make any sense without context, so I'll give you context. Reflection to me is a walking stick to remember. In a moment, I'm going to tell you about my walking stick, but how many of you have heard the statement? I think you probably all have heard, don't forget where you came from. Your mothers, you give don't forget where you came from. Now, don't forget where you go to college. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget where you came from. And sometimes we're saying, I'm doing my best to forget where I came from. Okay. So Margaret and I have a cottage up in the Smokies in North Carolina, a little town called Highlands. Just a little town, a couple thousand people. So a couple years ago, we were going to put a porch on our cottage and kind of have it as a place for us to spend a lot of time. So we got a contractor. Name is Ronnie. And the first day he came to talk to us about it, he was very happy. And he said, I've read a lot of your books and I got very excited when you want me to build your porch and I'll do a good job. And he's a wonderful guy, good contractor, did a really nice job, built a nice porch for us. But about the third time he came over and was talking to us about the porch, he said, John, he said, I know a lot of people ask you to speak. But he said, I have to ask you. He said, I just have to ask you. And I said, I'm sorry. He said, would you be willing to speak to the Rotary Club here in town? And I said, you want me to? Oh, he said, well, yeah, I want you to. But he said, no, wait, you got to understand, we can't pay you anything. We don't have any money. And he said, I know you're busy. Oh my, he said, you travel the world. He said, and I know when you get up here, you want to relax. That's why I'm doing the porch for you. And I know you want your privacy. And I know you don't have to. And I want you to know right now, I understand. When you say no, I understand why you said no. Real salesman, wasn't he? I said, Ronnie, if you'll let me pick the Tuesday, sometime in the next couple months, I'll let you know a couple weeks ahead. Yeah, I'd like to speak for the Rotary Club. He said, you're kidding. Oh, he said, give us a couple weeks. He said, give us a couple weeks. He said, we could have a big turnout. He said, give us a couple of weeks. He said, we will. I said, no, you don't have to advertise. I just let me come down and talk. Let me just come down and talk to the Rotary Club. So we set the date, and a couple of days before I was to go there, I was playing with a good friend of mine. We were playing some golf, and he said, man, he said, what's on your calendar? Where are you going next? So, well, I said, next Tuesday, I'm going to the Highlands Rotary Club. He said, you're going where? I said, well, I'm going to Highlands Rotary Club. He said, what are you going to do there? Well, I said, I'm going to speak. He said, you're kidding me. He said, you're going to speak at the Highlands Rotary Club? Yeah, I said, they said there'd be maybe 100. And they said we're going to have a buffet. He said, I can't believe a guy like you would speak at the Highlands. I said, well, I'm going to go do it. And when I went to the Highlands Rotary Club, it was such a wonderful experience. It was everything I remember about when I started. They did a roll call. If you're a Rotary member, you got to be present. You get points for being present. They told me I don't get any points. I'm not a Rotary member. And then they rang a bell, and they all came up and put in contributions for a special community project they had. And I asked them if I could contribute, even if I wasn't a Rotary member. I said, oh, no, you can. We take money from anyone. So I went in and contributed into the pot at the Rotary Club. And then he said, well, it's time for us to eat. And he said, we'll start with our guest, and we'll follow him. And they gave me a paper cup, a paper plate, plastic spoons. And I went over and started putting my food in a plate. I sat down right across me with two high school kids that the Rotary Club was going to give a scholarship that day because they were merit scholars. And so got to talk to their parents, to talk to the kids. And they told me when I was done that I could take my plate back over to the little trash can. And we kind of all cleaned up after ourselves. Then they said, now, you go back because there's some good pie back there. You want to get a piece of the pie. So I got a piece of the pie. And then they finally let me speak. So I spoke and told them how wonderful it was to be there. And before I spoke, Ronnie introduced me. He says, you know who we have here today. And he started making a big introduction. And when he finished, I said, the reason I'm here is because Ronnie's building a porch for me. And he's doing a real good job. And I like him. And I wanted to come over and speak for you. So I'm here because of Ronnie. I looked over, and Ronnie looks like Bernie Fife. I looked at those two high school kids, and I said, I would be here today if I could only talk to you, because your future's before you. So I think I'll just talk to the two of you, and all the Rotary Club members can listen in. And for about 20 minutes, I talked to those kids about their life and their future. And those parents beside them were so proud. When I finished, I said, I just have one request, if it's okay. Could I get a picture taken with you? And I pulled out my camera and got a picture taken with me. And so I finished my time together, and Ronnie said, thank you for coming. He said, we got something we want to give you. So I brought it with me today because it's really kind of one of my favorite items. It's a walking stick. See, we live up in Highlands, up in the mountains, and when you go hiking, they take the walking sticks. And so he said, we gave this to, in fact, I even left the, guest speaker, Rotary Club at Highlands. Left it all there. About a week later, my friend that played golf with me was back over at the porch, and we were talking. He said, hey, how'd the Rotary Club go? I said, well, it really went good. I said, let me show you something. And I went over to the corner and pulled out my walking stick. I said, this is what they gave me for speaking that day. I said, I really like it a lot. He said, why did you do that? I said, no matter how far you go, you got to always remember where you came from. Success has a way of putting us on a drug that's not the life that we're to live. And we need to have something that kind of grounds us. And so when people see me speak, they see me at my best because I prepared. And so they clap and they cheer. But when I walk off stage, I say to myself, that's not who I am. They saw me at my best. You see, I have another side. It's my lower side. Now, maybe you're different than me, but there are some things I would never want you to know. There are some things that I just wouldn't want anybody to think of me in that way. And what I realize is that in my lowest moments, I'm not as bad as people would think I am. But at my highest moments, I'm not as good as people think I am. And to be successful and sustain success, you've got to stay in the middle. Because if I look at my lower moments, I'll get so discouraged, to be honest with you, I won't get back up. I'll just kind of say it's over. And if I look at my best moments, I'll be so arrogant that you won't even be able to touch me because you'll just say, he's so into himself. And so every once in a while, I go and do something for people like the Highlands Rotary Club. And I look at my walking stick. I say, John, that's where you started. Don't ever forget where you started. Because that's who you are, and that's your foundation. And never let success take you away from your walking stick. And never allow, no matter where you live and what you have, to begin to influence how you think. You're just a kid who wants to make a difference, starting out with a walking stick. And so reflection for me is having a walking stick and remembering that my name is John. Then I truly am your friend. I want to teach.
Mm.